Welcome to the Love the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan of Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan of Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And Brian, we have a number 2 seed on the line this week against the Washington Commanders. And it really feels like just don't F it up. You know, it's right there for you. Just handle business.
Yeah, I was visiting with some folks from Washington, just kind of talking about their situation and stuff like that. And you know, it's difficult because they're in a kind of a spot right now where they all know what's going to happen. They've got a lot of veteran players that are on their injured list. You know, they've got a coaching situation that's probably going to be resolved very quickly after the season's over. You got coaches that are playing or trying to coach for their jobs, maybe for a new coach, maybe for other opportunities in the league. It's a situation nobody wants to be in. I was in it with Dallas, you know, Dave Campo's final year there, and you know, there was so much rumor and speculation about, you know, what's going on. Are they going to go get, you know, what's this Bill Parcells thing? I mean, there was just so much going on in the organization at the time. And it, you know, it's just unfortunate you have to go through it. But the thing about it is, you know, Ron Rivera essentially was the head coach and general manager of that team. He built that football team. There's some very good players there. But there's some players that aren't very good. You know, and they're struggling right now. They've lost a lot of games. They've got the second overall pick. They surely don't want to lose the game, but they don't want to lose the second overall pick. I mean, this is you couldn't imagine a worse situation to be in trying to play a football game with all that going on.
You know, it's funny. It is kind of like we say right in front of them, and it's a game that they should win. I'm curious, Brian, what year did you get to Green Bay?
It was 1992. I was hired at my 27th birthday. It was December 12th of 1991. They had like 20 losing seasons. I think 1989 they were actually 10-6, and it was the first time they'd had a winning season in forever. And
Magic Man was quarterback, right?
Yeah, Don Mikowski, and then Lindy Infante got fired by Ron Wolf, my boss, and then we hired Mike Holmgren in January. Matter of fact, January 12th, I think, is when he was hired. Bill Parcells, believe it or not, we were trying to hire Bill Parcells for that job.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually held Bill Parcells' contract in my hand. And it's funny because we were in a situation where Bill, and here's story time with Brian, so I'm sorry about this.
No, hit it.
But real quick, Bill was on TV with NBC, and he was doing the pregame show during the playoffs, and Ron Wolf was interviewing Mike Holmgren. So I was in another room watching a TV, and Parcells was going to either say yes or no to coaching again, but he was going to say it on TV. And and Ron said, okay, if he says yes, he's coaching, then just buzz me, and I'll take the interview a different way. And Parcells came on NBC and said, no, he really likes what he's doing. He stayed on with NBC and kept going. And then Ron continued on with the interview with Mike Holmgren, and we hired him as a coach. And, you know, and the rest was history, as they would say. But that thing really turned around, you know, very, very quickly with Brett Favre, Reggie White, and then Mike Holmgren and others that were on that staff.
It was a like you said, it was a bad football team in 1991. It was a team that had struggled. 2 months before you got hired, the Dallas Cowboys went into actually I believe it was Milwaukee County Stadium is where they went into that year. Yeah. And I was doing the Cowboys crosstalk this week with Nate Newton, and Nate was talking about this game before the Cowboys against the Commanders. He said he remembered this game going into going to play the Packers in 1991. And he said they were so bad. Yeah. And Jimmy told us beforehand, before the game, he gave us the speech and he says, you guys are so much better than them. Okay. You're so much better than this team. I just want to get out of here with a victory. I don't need anybody to beat anybody down. I don't need you guys to do anything. He's like, the entire mission in this game today, because you're better and we know you're better, no penalties, no turnovers, get the hell out of here. I don't care what the scoreboard looks like. Let's just get out with a win, because we don't have to do anything other than just don't have any mistakes and we can leave here with a victory. And Nate Newton said they won 20-17. They were kind of getting criticized for just, this is kind of a team that's sleepwalking today. And Nate's like, we didn't care because we just knew we were better. So it was, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just go in here, don't make mistakes, and you'll win because you're better. So he says that he thinks that should be the approach this weekend with Washington. You don't go in there looking to cover a 13-point spread. This is sitting right before you. Don't sleepwalk on a team. We were talking with Tony Tolbert during this thing. Tolbert, one of the really solid players that's sort of forgotten, I think, by Cowboys fans over the years, but a guy who meant a lot to those Super Bowl teams. And Tony said, when we lost games in the 90s, and I don't know if you remember this way, Brian, but he's like, when our teams lost games, those games we really had no business losing.
Oh, no,
and
absolutely,
he's like, it was usually we just did not give people the respect they deserved because we were like, we'll just go in
Arizona,
there. Phoenix, and he's like, and then we'd lose.
Yeah.
And so their line of thinking was, take the Green Bay approach in 1991. Don't do the sleepwalk, but just go in there with the game plan of don't screw it up. Just don't do anything stupid. Don't do turnovers. Do not go out here trying to blow the doors off of this team. Just don't make mistakes, and you're better than them, so you will leave with a victory. Is that the approach you would suggest this weekend, Brian? Is just limit mistakes. Don't go out here trying to run these guys into the ground.
Bobby, I totally agree with Nate Newton and Tolbert. Anybody that Jimmy Johnson, I totally agree. This one is about to try and be as healthy as you can, but figure out a way to win this football game. And, if you have to win it at the first half, the second half, the final minute, whatever, just win it. Because I do believe this, and I want to ask you this question too, and maybe you share this same sentiment with me. Dallas Super Bowl future is riding on this game.
In terms of winning it and getting the second seed? Yep, absolutely. Yeah, if you've got a legitimate shot. I feel like you have a legitimate shot at the Super Bowl if you're the number 2 seed. I feel if you don't have the number 2 seed, you have zero shot.
Yeah, it's either you're going to have a chance with home games, and you have to win the games. Let's not act like they can just. But they play so much better at home. 8-0. It's obvious they play better at home.
Not just 8-0, 16 straight. Going back to last year, 16 straight.
Exactly. There you go. Even better. So Dallas's chance to participate or potentially participate in the Super Bowl this year hinges on them beating the Washington Commanders on Sunday. Because if they don't, I think it was 1978? Is that the last time they won 3 games in the playoff on the road to go to a Super Bowl?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's a crazy number like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's been forever, and it's not always done around here. Dallas has to win this game. And they need to, whatever approach, the Nate Newton approach or whatever approach that is, you have to take that in. That has to be your mindset. As soon as you step on that airplane and you fly towards the Capitol, you have to figure out whatever you have to do to win this football game you need to do. Because your playoff existence depends on it.
Have you gotten a chance? Obviously, we were talking with JP Finley from NBC Sports Washington on 105.3 The Fan on Thursday, and he said, look, you're only going to get about 2/3 of the starters you saw in the last time that Dallas and Washington played each other. He's like, they're really run down, new tackles, the corners are susceptible. Brian, when you've taken a look at things this week, is there anything other than just the normal the voodoo of Washington, D.C. that it has been the last couple of years
Blue
for Dak
jerseys.
Prescott and everything else? Is there anything about this Washington team that you go, all right, just don't let them do this in this game and you'll be okay?
I'll tell you what, Bobby, I know that, I think that I'm hearing the same thing. That, you look at their injury report and it's pretty extensive. And they've got a lot of veteran players on there. Some veteran players probably in a situation where, right now, is it really worth it to us to play? Ron Rivera, I was talking to a media member in Washington, And they were told me, they're like, listen, Ron early was very kind of combative with the media. And here lately, he hasn't. He understands where they're at, what the situation is, what's likely going to happen to him.
Yeah.
The thing that worries me the most about the Commanders, and I was asking the same questions about Eric Bieniemy, and how can this team be first in pressures allowed and last in rush attempts? How does that? And this media member told me, it goes back to Eric Bieniemy. It really, really goes back to Eric Bieniemy and his philosophy and how he does things. And you look at Andy Reid, and it's true. So I looked it up, and I'm like, who has the second least of carries in the league? I guess I said that right. I hope I did.
Second fewest.
Excuse me. Second fewest. Thank you for saving me. You like David Hellman there. Second fewest carries in the league right now.
Let's throw out a guess of the Rams.
Kansas City. Yeah. Washington's number 1. Kansas City's number 2. So
Andy Reid coaching tree.
There you go. I mean, and Andy and them do a hell of a job. They're a Super Bowl winning team. They're outstanding. But you look at the Chiefs and the Commanders are two different teams. Sam Howell, they've asked him to do a lot. I mean, he's probably extended himself beyond what Sam Howell could even do. So that in itself says a lot. But the thing that scares me about the Commanders is, what if they do decide to run the football? What if they decide to take Robinson and Gibson and just say, you know what, we're going to run the ball. We're going to run a college offense. Sam Howell's going to run we're going to run RPOs, and that's how we're going to beat Dallas. We're just going to RPO them to death. He's going to fake a handoff. He's going to run. He's going to pull the ball. He's going to throw. See, that's the thing, because really the Commanders have nothing to lose. Ron Rivera can go for every fourth down. He can go for every 2-point play. He can, he doesn't have to elect to kick field goals. He can make things very, very difficult. He can onside kick. He fake punt. Hell, a fake punt's a good play against the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So that's the things that scare me, Bobby. It's the potential. It's the potential. But who's not going to play? Jonathan Allen going to play? He's got a knee. He's a veteran. He's been very outspoken too about hating to lose and this, that. And this might be his way of saying, I'm not going to play in a meaningless damn game. You know? Might be, there might be several of these guys that do that. And if that's the case, boy, if that inactive list looks like Jonathan Allen and some others, then, you got your Cowboys, you got to take a little bit of a, because who knows what's going to happen. I was talking to some folks about Tyler Smith. That thing could go down till Sunday. That could go down till, availability on Sunday, of him playing.
Which Bass hasn't been awful. Bass hasn't been awful, but what's the strength of the Commanders? Those two inside those defensive tackles. Yeah.
That's the strength of that. That's the strength of that defense. They're bad at linebacker. They're struggling right now with the health of their secondary. You go back and watch the game that Dallas played against. They didn't get pressure. Dak carved them up. Cooks, Lamb, Gallup had a catch. The first catch of the game went to Gallup for 13 yards. It seems like 1,000 years ago that happened. So those are the things that kind of scare me about not so much the Commanders' defense with the exception of their tackles, but Terry McLaurin scares me. Logan Thomas. I know these guys haven't played, there's been some regression when you talk to folks about with Dotson and stuff like that, it's, kind of feel like that they haven't had the kind of year, but they can play this game pretty wide open if they want, and those are the things that scare me going into it.
You are listening to the Love the Star podcast, the Love the Stars and Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, this is, of course, a game that we talk about that there's a lot riding on it, this number 2 seed and Dallas's hopes of, getting a couple of home playoff games, getting the opportunity potentially for another team to pick off San Francisco for you so you don't have to go against them. Because, Brian, I don't know about you. There's a lot to like about what the Cowboys have done in since the San Francisco game. And I know that there's a lot of optimism right now. I'll be honest, I still look at this as a team that probably loses pretty handily, I think, to San Francisco if they play them right now, just because I think it's a team that their play style and the way that they've kind of got a psychological grasp on the Cowboys, I think is something that's really tough for Dallas to deal with. And so I still think that there are problems potentially there, and it'd be nice if somebody could pick them off for you. But I wanted to quickly just kind of kick around the ideas of some of these teams that you could potentially go against if you're the Cowboys with that number 2 seed. So you've got a couple of different options. Right now, the likeliest options, it feels like, are the Packers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and then you've got some very,
Saints at 4%, Vikings
Saints,
at 2%,
Vikings, and then the very the Buccaneers. If the Buccaneers tie in their game and a couple other things happen, then the Bucs could get to 7. So not really realistic there, but Vikings, Saints, Bucs. We can talk about those teams at some length, but realistically, what you're looking at here are probably the Seahawks, Packers, and the Rams. That those are the teams that you're looking at, and it looks like Sean McVay is welcoming the opportunity to potentially take on the Cowboys, because if the Packers win and the Rams lose, the Rams have the number 7 seed, and the Rams are starting Carson Wentz this weekend against the San Francisco 49ers. They're looking to get healthy. So let's just take a look at the Rams real quick, because I know that's a team that you are concerned with, and I know that's a team that you had some back and forth with some people on Twitter over. But a team that you handled, you beat by 23 points 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago, whatever it was. But it feels like a very different football team,
very different team
right now. And do you really want to welcome in the different ways that passing attack can kind of attack your secondary?
No, you know what? I really don't. And that's why I said the Rams, and people were calling me the P word, and you got to play who you want to play. It's the Rams. We smoked them. Did you see the Rams play the Giants? My retort to that was, did you see the Rams play the Ravens? They're the two teams that have played the Ravens the best are the Rams and the Browns. That's really who's played. That's who's played the Ravens the best. I think the Ravens are the best team in the National Football League right now. I really do believe that. I don't want anything to do with the Rams. You know why? You look at the Rams' attitude. The Rams are not interested in getting the 6th seed, even though the 49ers are not playing anybody. The 49ers are not playing anybody. The Rams could go and win that football game, be 10-7, lock up the 6th seed, and travel to Detroit and set up that Matthew Stafford and then golf playing against their old teams, that kind of thing. But you know what? Sean McVay is like, nuh-uh. Health is more important and rest is more important to me, because he goes, we're going to have to go on the road anyway. It doesn't matter. 6th, 7th, it doesn't matter for us. That scares me. That kind of attitude of like, we feel like that we're good enough to go anywhere on the road and win. That should right there bother you quite a bit. But but everybody's out there, oh no, you smoked him and all that. I'm not, hey, Cowboy fans, I'm not trying to make you sound like whiners and stuff like that. I've asked national people about this. I asked Brian Baldinger about this today on our show on 105.3 The Fan about that. Who do you not want to play? The Rams. Everybody, the Rams. Nobody wants to play the Rams because people who really, 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 really study this will tell you they are playing excellent football right now. They run the football. They've got 2 quality pass catchers. They've got a really good tight end, and they've got a healthy quarterback. And their offensive line has kind of figured some things out. Dallas at home smoked them, no question. Los Angeles went from Dallas, lost that game, went to the Packers the next week, lost the game, got their bye, and then all of a sudden they started figuring things out. Everything started kind of coming together for them, So I'm just kind of like, I was mentioning that the Browns are one of the best teams in the league, I think. Joe Flacco's they smoked the Browns, in a game in Los Angeles. So I don't want anything to do with, I really don't. Give me the Packers. The Packers, to me, with a quarterback making his first playoff start, even though he's playing very, very well, I hope Mike McCarthy doesn't make too much of the game.
That is something that I'm curious about. Did you ever run into these instances with teams you were with where there was you know what? Here's a good example.
Killed the 49ers.
Holmgren,
every time we played the 49ers, Holmgren had their number every single time.
But 03 when Parcells had to go to New England and take on Belichick, and that was I think the first game that he was coaching since the big Jet snub and things like that. Do you remember there being a sense in there like, oh, this one's like really important to Bill or Bill, this one is really was there a palpable sense of that within the building?
Nobody listen.
So is that a potential distraction if you get Green Bay in the playoffs? Is that something you have to worry about then?
Sure it is, because he's going to answer all the questions again. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's Jordan Love. But you never know. The great thing about Dallas is Dallas at home seems to find a way to get things done. Green Bay, Green Bay's had their moments where their defense hasn't been good enough. They run the ball. They do have a capable back. That in itself is. But this is one of these games where Kellen Moore, I think, lost his job, or at that point after the Green Bay game. I think Mike McCarthy had made the decision that Green Bay loss affected Mike McCarthy.
It's very personal.
He took it very personal. Very personal. And let me tell you this. They play Green Bay in the first round, say they win, and all that, and they play Green Bay and they lose this game. I wouldn't want to be around that organization if that happened. I really, really won't. I wouldn't want to be around all that. I wouldn't want to be around Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, anybody that's involved with that organization if they go and find a way and they lose that first round game. And especially if it's to Green Bay.
Yeah, and Green Bay, a team that you're clearly better than. Green Bay's had their struggles. Jordan Love is playing a lot better recently, and there are ways they can attack him. But we mentioned there the Rams, the Packers, those sorts of scenarios.
Seahawks.
What about the idea of Seattle? I was going to say, what about Seattle coming back here? Seattle played you really, really well.
Yeah. I'm sorry I interrupt you there, Bobby.
No. Just the idea of Seattle coming
about. What do you think? What do you think about Seattle? I worry about those three wide receivers.
I worry about the three receivers. I also feel like. I also feel like they gave you kind of their best shot that day.
They did.
And I don't know that they can duplicate that. Is the biggest thing. I don't.
You're right.
And so right. I do think you took their best shot and you still beat them.
Yeah.
It took a lot for them. But to me, the easiest of those three is the Packers. I think the Packers are the worst football team of those three. Yeah. Now, obviously, if you can tell me Minnesota's going to find a way to sneak in there and I can get Minnesota without TJ Hawkinson and Kirk Cousins and everything else that's going on at that quarterback situation, I welcome that here at AT&T Stadium, no doubt about it.
I'll tell you what, the Packers are going to have their hands full with the Bears this weekend.
That team's been fighting for Matt Eberflus.
They have been. They've absolutely, in the quarterback, Green Bay is capable of peeing down their leg in this one. They really, really are, So absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears went in there and won a game, much like what Detroit did last year to Green Bay at the end of the year.
So you've got if the Seahawks beat the Cardinals and the Packers lose to the Bears, you get the Seahawks that are the number 7. If the Packers win and the Rams lose, you get the Rams who are the 7. If the Packers win and the Rams win, then you get the Packers who are the 7. Brian, what is your best guess? We're assuming the Cowboys take care of business against Washington. Who do you think we're previewing next week as their opponent?
You think it's the Rams?
I think it's the Rams because I think the Packers are going to win and the Rams look like they're packing it in this week.
Yeah, I think so too.
Which is frustrating because I think the Rams are a team that could give San Francisco a run for their money in the divisional. I don't think they'd beat them. I'd pick San Francisco to beat anybody in the NFC playoff picture right now, but that's a team that I think would challenge them. Did challenge them all the way back in week 2 before they had figured things out.
Yeah. See, I don't want to be this guy too that all of a sudden you play the Rams and you lose, and then now I'll feel like crap because I'm like, I'll be like, well, I told you guys we don't want to play the Rams.
How bad is it for everybody if you lose to the Rams and it's on a Brett Maher last-second field goal?
Oh, geez.
Should I not even speak that into
Don't
existence?
Even speak that into
Boy, the
existence.
YouTube comments are going to light us up on this one, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and shift over to the Love the Star mailbag. You are listening to the Love the Star podcast. The Love the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcast. See, Brian, I'm trying to take some of that Rams heat off of you. I'm saying I'm talking Rams, and now I'm making a fake scenarios where, or they score a touchdown to tie it, and then it's a Brett Maher extra point that does the end as time expires. Boy, it'd be a little poetic, you got to admit. All right, let's turn things over to.
It would be tough. I mean, Dallas has got to find a way. You got to get these home games. You absolutely have to find a way to get these home games.
Make no mistake about it, by the way, if they play the Rams at AT&T Stadium next week, I'm picking the Cowboys to win the game. Spoiler alert, I'm picking the Cowboys, but I think the Rams do some things to challenge you, but I'm picking the Cowboys. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag, as we return things over to our listeners, get their thoughts, their questions, their comments. First one here from DJ Major, and this is an interesting question with Lyle Collins getting signed. We talked about that earlier this week. Lyle Collins on the practice squad. Damian Wilson is back. They signed a number of guys. We're no longer going to get Martavis Bryant questions anymore because he's been released from the practice squad. But DJ Major is asking, what happens when a team brings in players for a workout? Do they go through combine drills? Do they go against practice squad players? So, Brian, talk about just when you bring in a player for a workout, what exactly happens? Are they just working them through individual drills? Are they having them go through bags? What kind of stuff would they have somebody like Lyle Collins do, for instance?
First off, I owe everybody out there an apology. My high-ranking official that told me that they were going to use Lyle Collins was going to play tackle, but he worked out at guard today. But yeah. And if I told you who my high-ranking official were, you would go, oh, okay, I would have reported that too. But yeah, here's Lyle Collins.
Come on, Jerry.
Yeah, exactly. You laugh.
But what do they generally put somebody like Lyle or Damian Wilson? Do they have? Is it like watching the combine essentially?
Well, individual workout. It's not like the combine drills where it's like the combine positional drills though, like the pulling. They're not going to ask these guys to run a 40. They're not going to make them do a short shuttle or anything like that.
They don't have them go up against somebody. It's just all individual stuff.
They can't do that. So like the coach, we'll have a coach out there that'll hold a bag. He'll do punch drills, movement drills, set drills. They'll work them out to the point where if Lyle Collins would have got through the workout and was like dying, bending over, couldn't finish, then you don't sign the guy. I've seen coaches work a guy out to the point where he just fell over in exhaustion. And we're like, the coach looks at the scouts and goes, we can't sign this guy. He's not even in shape, So, Lyle Collins looked like, it was good. It was nice we talked to Zach Martin today, and he was talking about how happy he was to have Lyle back. But yeah, it's basically positional drills. The pulling, scoop block, power, drive block, pass sets, those kinds of drills you see at the combine.
Next question here from Joe T. And this is very, very broad here, Brian, but I think it's relevant as we enter this playoff run here. If you both had to pick the biggest reason why the Cowboys haven't made it far for 27 years, so the biggest reason why the Cowboys have had a 27-year drought of the conference championship game, what would the biggest reason be? And Brian, as you come for your thoughts, I'll put this out here. And I know this sounds like a cop-out in a lot of ways. Honestly, when you go 27 years and they've had teams as talented as they have, and they've been in position to, have home field advantage, they're the number one seed or whatever else, and things fall apart. I honestly think some of it has just been, there's been some real statistical bad luck here. Now there have been several years where the Cowboys did things on their own. There was a stretch of, drafting that wasn't great. There was a stretch where you didn't have great coaching. But there have been several years over the last 20 where they've had teams capable of getting to the conference championship game. And I know it's easy to go, what's the constant? It's Jerry. I know people love to say that, but over 20 years, their personnel department's been really good and put really good players into place, and you've had good coaches. And I think honestly, just what it is you've been hit by a really bad run of luck. It's similar to the run of luck that says, how have you gone 20 years without back-to-back, champs in the NFC East? It's that same sort of just anomaly where, to me, it's like I think you've just run into some really unfortunate bounces of the ball at times.
Yeah, I think it goes all the way back to Jerry and Jimmy parting ways. Even though they were able to win a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer, a lot of that was the groundwork that Jimmy and Jerry laid in the coaching staff. They lost a lot of coaches along the way.
Did you guys know in Green Bay there in 95 when they won? Did you guys, was the opinion around the rest of the league of like, yeah, they won, but they're almost done. They're running out of time.
They had
Nate Newton had brought this up there. And Nate Newton and Tony Tolbert said that 95 season, even though they won, they got to the end of it and they're like, this was a hell season. Like, this was awful. Yeah. Did you guys have a sense around the league of like, this isn't going to keep going? Yeah,
the draft the next year, that wasn't very good for them. And we kind of felt like that they were getting to be a little bit of an older team. And, some things started kind of showing some cracks. I remember the game that they lost to Carolina, the divisional game in Carolina.
26-17 and 96.
Yeah, it was his Panthers' second year. And I just remember that, Troy just throwing the ball, and Michael was hurt, and I think Dion got hurt in that game, and Troy just threw the ball. It was an interception. It was kind of like he just said, I've had enough. We need a break. And he, the interception, and from that point on in Green Bay, we were kind of like, wow, okay, because we had a really good handle on San Francisco, but we didn't have a handle on Dallas at all. So I think when you go all the way back to that point, they started getting old, and then it just kind of, with Switzer, just never really, they lost that ability to, even though Barry Switzer had been in the college ranks and knew a lot of college players, he didn't help them like Jimmy helped them with player personnel stuff. So they weren't getting better on player personnel stuff. And then I came on board in 1999, that season, and that was Chan Gailey. And they'd gone to back-to-back playoffs, but it was kind of an 8-8 team. It really wasn't a great team. It was starting to be the end of Troy and all that stuff like that. I mean, injuries were starting to kind of pile up. The early 2000s, we couldn't find a quarterback. And then Bill came along, and Bill just was too old. I mean, Bill was too old. He just couldn't maintain. And so, but what you have, Bill got us back. We weren't ready to win. We went to Carolina, and and Quincy did the best he could. It was a 10-6 team. I mean, it was kind of fun. I mean, to kind of be winners again. But then Bill, it just, we got fortunate to find Romo. That was Wade Phillips. Then they lose the game where they had the home field advantage. They lose to the Giants. It just was crazy. It seemed like from that point on, every year there was something. Whether in 2014, the Dez catch,
Yeah.
I mean, DeMarco Murray gets the ball knocked out of his hand. He's going to score. And Julius Peppers knocks the ball out of his hand, and it's a fumble. And so now, it's just, and it was just one thing after another with the way that the season went. You go all the way back to Romo dropping the snap in Seattle. They've had some really terrible, tragic plays. Third and 19 in 2016. Aaron Rodgers,
it's Jared Cook on the sideline.
I mean, the previous play to that, Jeff Heath comes on a blitz and hits Aaron Rodgers as hard as I've ever seen a quarterback get hit.
Zero reason he should have held on to that football.
No question. How the hell Aaron Rodgers held on to that? And Orlando Scandrick was standing on the other side, and if that ball, if it flies out of his hand, it's scoop and score, ball game. But, you lose that one. There were just so many of these, these plays where you go, my gosh, this is just game-changing, gut-wrenching types of things. I think they've dealt with that quite a bit too. I really, really do.
Well, that's the little tragic trip
12
down
men in the huddle or
there.
Some,
Yeah.
illegal
always something. Hopefully it's not a something. I will say it's setting up as well as it has in a long time.
Sure.
And the Cowboys are hopefully in a good spot. It starts with taking care of business this weekend against the Washington Commanders, though, and then taking care of business as soon as you get into the playoffs. Yeah. We'll have reaction for you to all of it, and we will also get you deep into this preview of the NFL playoffs. It's an exciting time. Cowboys and the Commanders this weekend at FedEx Field, and the number 2 seed, a chance to continue 20 straight years of no back-to-back NFC East champions. It was looking ripe for the Eagles. Now Dallas is in a really good position, so hopefully they take care of business this weekend. For Brian Broaddus, I am Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates.
Yeah.
Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.